welcome to the Vernon Park District Board meeting of October 22nd, 2015. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Kessler? Here. Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Commissioner Dorhofer?
Here.
Commissioner Moline?
Here.
President Blue?
Present. All rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First up this evening is the omnibus vote agenda. Items on the omnibus vote agenda are considered routine and are non-controversial, and they approved by one motion. A separate vote on any one item is desired and will be pulled from the omnibus vote agenda and voted on separately. Items this evening are minutes of the regular board meeting of September 24th, 2015, minutes of the closed session meeting of September 24th, 2015, and payables less Granger and payroll through October 22nd, 2015 in the amount of $530,285.20. I have a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Moline?
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler?
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorhofer?
Yes.
President Blue?
Yes. Okay, next is our welcome to visitors and guests public comment period for items that are not on the agenda this evening. So, great rush to the podium. We'll move on to the financial reports for the period ending September 30th, 2015. Marla, any changes or additions?
No, perfect.
Okay, you're there. And then at the essence of time, we're going to skip reports and communications this evening from the staff, except for Mr. Ritter, who has I think, an important announcement for us.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to remind everybody watching that next Friday is our annual Fall Fest event at the Sullivan Center. Always highly attended. It's only $1, and this year you can actually get your tickets online. Or you can get them at the Sullivan Center if you'd like. If you wait till the day of, it's $5. So just a reminder, it'll be from 6 to 9 p.m. on Friday night, October 30th. Thank you.
Then we have one bit of board correspondence this evening is from Nick Brown, the superintendent of schools for the Hawthorne School District 73. Says the Hawthorne School District 73 School Board has met and discussed the potential of a shared project at the Sullivan Center. The school board is evaluating the district's needs as quickly as possible. We hope to be able to provide details within 12 months, but ask that we are provided with a 36-month window. Currently, the district is in the process of securing an architectural firm to begin looking at feasibility and design possibilities. If you have additional questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me. I look forward to our continuing partnership. And just as an update to that, Jeff and I met yesterday with Nick Brown and Jason Tron over at the site, and they are very interested in working with us in some sort of attachment to our expansion of the building. They I think it's probably, they need classroom space. One possibility is looking at an entire kindergarten building. They haven't made that decision yet, but that was one of the ideas they threw out. So they're going back. They told us that they're going to be getting an architect to look at some preliminary drawings, something so that the rest of the board can see, get a concept and idea of what's going on. And then I think they said they would get back to us by April, I believe. Something in April to tell us if they were truly interested, I believe. Did I get that right?
Yeah, the April discussion was more in depth related to them constructing a future building that would tie into our proposed gymnasium addition, so that they could share use of the gymnasium. So that would be the earliest that they thought they could provide a response to us. I think probably best if we want to, delay conversation, Jim, until we get into the Williams architect proposal that's before you, and then we can maybe talk more in depth at that point.
But just follow on to the left. Okay. Next up is unfinished business. We have one?
No.
Okay, good. And next we have new business, community service awards with Mark Rosenstock. Please meet me at the podium, please.
You want to borrow mine?
Yeah, I think so.
There's plenty in the room to go around.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, this evening, the Illinois Parks and Recreation Association and the Illinois Association of Park Districts with the Vernon Hills Park District present the Community Service Award to Mark Rosenstock in recognition and appreciation of outstanding contributions and unselfish devotion for the advancement of parks, recreation, and leisure in the community and the state of Illinois. It's signed by Debbie Trueblood, IPRA Executive Director, and Peter Murphy, the IAPD President and CEO. So, all of your contributions.
Thank you.
We appreciate everything you did.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Appreciate it.
You want a picture?
Get in there.
Yeah,
Right there? You're good?
Perfect.
Move that fan, so we have fans on.
That's just.
Here, I won't get it.
Okay.
Very nice, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Mark.
Hey, Mark, we all know how much time, effort, energy it took to get everything, and a lot of people don't know what it takes. I think people that sit up here have an idea, and you put in twice as much as anybody probably really ever knows, so.
Well,
thank you very much.
I appreciate it, especially from this group. I know you're all volunteers too, so if anybody knows what it takes to be in a group of volunteers, it's you guys, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
What people see during the day when you're out coaching and stuff, they see that readily, but what they don't see are the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock nights, the 5 o'clock mornings, and they all happen when you're doing what you did, so thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Vernon. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the audit presentation. Could Ronnie up to the podium and fill us in our fiscal year 14-15 audit.
Good evening. Tonight I'm going to walk through two different documents. One, the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is the 83-page document, and then I'll walk through briefly the management letter that we issued to the Park District. In the CAFR, the first page I want to point out is an introductory section, which is page 7, which is VII. In the introductory section, they're all Roman numeral. Once again, the Park District has received the Certificate of Achievement. It's a very prestigious award. It goes through 3 levels of review in the Government Finance Officers Association program. One thing I'd like to remind people about is that it doesn't talk to you about the financial health of your Park District, but what it does do is make sure that any of the requirements and professional standards are adhered to when it goes through its review process. So once again, the Park District should be very proud to be part of that program. Once the May of 15 audit is approved at the board level, it will be submitted to the program as well for the review process. Right behind the Certificate of Achievement, under the financial section, is the Independent Auditor's Report. It's on page 1 and 2. It's on the Lauterbach name and letterhead. All units of government required by state statute to have an independent auditor's report. Our report is clean or unqualified. This is the highest opinion you can receive from your auditors, and the basis of that opinion is that your financial statements are materially correct based on our auditing procedures. The last 2 pages I'll point out in the audit are on pages 9 and 10. So it's past the MD&A section, just regular pages 9 and 10. What I'm going to do is just walk through real briefly the change in fund balance for each one of the fund types that the Park District has. So starting on page 9, the general fund had an increase. It's the 3rd line up from the bottom of $299,895, so a positive increase in your general fund. Your recreation fund had a positive increase of $66,000. Your Lakeview Fitness Center had a decrease of $92,000. The debt service fund had a decrease of $11,008. Your capital fund had an increase of $74,000. And the Park District has 2 what we call non-major funds, and those had a decrease of $70,000. So cumulative across the entire Park District, the far right totals column, 3rd line up from the bottom, shows a positive increase in fund balance of $266,000. So a positive increase in your fund balance cumulative across all those funds for the year. From there, in the management letter, there are 4 comments that I'm going to touch on briefly. All of these are rollover comments from last year as well. The first one in the management letter is those GASBs, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. There's 2 of them, GASB 67 and 68, that work together. GASB 67 was required to be implemented in the current year. IMRF did implement that, provided us their new reporting and model under GASB 67. And what happens next year at May of 16 is the Park District will be required to implement GASB 68, which is the piggyback in the second phase of that implementation. Comment number 2, 3 and 4 all kind of relate to each other, but it's something our firm has always put in management letters to our clients to make the boards aware. Comment number 2, you can see at the top of that comment that the Lakeview Fitness Center at May of 14 was outside of compliance with the fund balance policy that the board adopted. And then the bottom part of that comment shows that the Lakeview and now the Aquatic Fund is out of compliance with what the board has approved at the fund balance policy. So you have 2 funds at the end of the year that were outside of the compliance. The third comment is funds over budget. There's a schedule there that shows 3 funds at May of 14 that were had expenditures that exceeded the budget or appropriation numbers. And then at 15, there are 3 funds, 2 new ones and 1 repeat fund that have expenditures in excess of what the budget amounts were. And the fourth and final comment then is once again the Lakeview Fitness Center Fund and what the fund balance was, and it's a negative position just to make sure, and obviously the board is aware of that, but to make sure we note it in our management letter to the board. So from there, I'll either take any questions about the CAFR, the management letter, or our audit process.
Any questions? Commissioner Robbins?
I just want to let my fellow commissioners know that I reviewed the management letter, spent a long time reviewing the management letter and the audit report. Came with just a few minor changes which were made, so this year I'm fine for voting approval of the audit report.
Here we go. Anybody else? Please speak. All right. Guess we don't have any questions for you. That's good. All right then. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to Marla. I didn't go that far, but going through the audit is a team approach. It takes many, many hours for your staff. It starts all the way back in May. So we appreciate all the work and cooperation we get, not just from Marla, but others throughout the Park District to assist. But obviously Marla is the main point. So we do appreciate all the cooperation and professionalism that she provides to this process. So.
Good to know.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, with that, I need a motion to approve the audit for the fiscal year 2014-15 provided by Laura and LLP.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Dorhoeffer,
Yes.
Commissioner Moline,
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
President Balloon.
Yes. Okay, next up is need a motion to approve the 2016 Park Board meeting schedule.
So moved.
Go ahead. I'll second.
So moved.
Any questions on it? Roll call.
Commissioner Dorhoeffer,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Moline,
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler,
Yes.
President Balloon.
Yes. We have architect here? Oh, you didn't? Okay. All right, then next up, I need a motion to approve the Williams Architect Professional Services proposed services and fees for the improvements of the Sullivan Community Center.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Robbins.
One thing I didn't like is that when they spoke about reimbursable expenses, they were getting reimbursed at a 15% markup. I just, it always really aggravates me and bothers me. You know, they're getting a decent fee and then they have to mark up expenses. Just to me, doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I agree with you, but that's a standard.
Industry standard.
It's an industry. I had everything read and confirmed from Nicole Karras, who's one of our attorneys, an associate with Tressler. She does all our contracts. And she assured me that that's a standard procedure. Yeah.
It's wrong,
They all do it.
but they all do it, and you can't get around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make a comment.
And the reality is, I think wrong is a rather strong word, but
That's excessive.
I'm okay with
we
that.
make profit on all kinds of, companies make profits on all kinds of things, so if making a 15% profit on that is wrong, then so is a lot of other
Most of the
profit-making endeavors.
reimbursables are prints, like if we ask them to do a redesign on something, you know, so it might be a printed cost that will be $50, so you're gonna get a bill for $57.50, you know,
I
because it's
get it.
getting added on.
I mean, I
They're
understand
usually
it,
not,
but-
the reimbursables are usually not like really high end, they're
Right.
usually you know, anywhere from 50 to a couple $100.
You know, if you pay a guy $30 an hour and you mark it up to make a profit, it's really the same idea. It's just, you might look at it a little differently, but it's the same. So, anyway,
Mr. Kessler.
So,
Have we asked them what we expect that total to be on a project like this? Do we have an idea?
yeah, so what you got in that in the service contract, again, that's not that number of 8% of the cost estimate. The cost estimate on the budget.
No, I was referring to the additional fees.
Oh, the
The
reimbursables?
reimbursement. Do we have an idea of how much are we even talking?
No, I don't have that number. I don't know that anybody would really give that to you, Cindy, because you don't know. I mean, travel's included in that. If we need to have them come out, you know, beyond their regular project meetings, they're gonna hit you up for that as a reimbursement. My experience has been, it's very minimal. Usually it's less than a couple $1,000s for a project. If I
Okay.
went back to Lakeview, I can almost assure you it's probably less than $1,000, you know, for reimbursables.
Okay, well, that puts it in
Yeah, it gives you
perspective.
a little
then.
bit, yeah. I think just to follow up, I know since we're in discussion before the vote, is the meeting that Jim and I had with the school board, one of the school board members and Nick is pretty clear that Jason, you know, he even told Nick, you need to get every one of the board members to come out here and walk the site individually and share with them what you're doing. He had already approached the village beyond our property. If you look, there's a large kind of green space that is just directly east of the new library parking lot. And he went to John Calmer, and John said, well, what I recall a couple years ago when we all sat down with all the parties on this particular property, that the mayor's recommendation was come to us, but come to us as a group. And so that's what we're using, and John didn't have any problem with saying yes to the school district of, yeah, I mean, that was made pretty clear. If you guys want to use the space, just make sure that all the parties are working together and synchronized on whatever, you know, development you want to do. So that was a kind of a good news share. We still don't know when they want to go. I can almost say with certainty that they do want to do something. Their facts are going to come out real quick in terms of the potential population growth they're going to get, student population growth with the new development that's, you know, the village is already kind of set in stone. So it's really to us just how they want to design and build a building that's going to connect to our gymnasium, if that's, you know, that's what we do. So that's something that the two architects, whoever they hire, and our architect are going to have to get together. And that's what we talked about this date of April, that it would be easy for us to at least put in our gymnasium, the far north end of the gymnasium, have a door put in so that if they do build an addition, they can have access to the gym so that they're, you know, so that everything is synonymous. We did like the idea of keeping that property that's west of Sullivan Center and that hugs the Aspen Drive there, trying to keep that in place and intact. It's from our vantage point, it's a nice bermed area, it's well vegetated. I'd hate to disrupt that. I think from a traffic standpoint, you're gonna have to get buses in and out of there, and it's probably best that they come through the Sullivan lot and wrap around and go out as an egress potential. And it just, if you're over there at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day, cars are backed up.
oh yeah, all the way down
They
in.
have a police officer. The last thing we need is to add more traffic along that drive, that service drive with, you know, with buses, et cetera. But he did talk very candidly about Nick's position is he sees them doing a kindergarten, a dedicated kindergarten center with 18 classrooms. They currently have 15 classrooms on their campus. He thinks with the, you know, the additional potential students that they would get from these developments, that's what they're going to need. They'd love to have a gym. They'd love to have it somehow do a design that they can exercise use of the library for library services for the kids. So I like the fact that, you know, all the government bodies need to talk and work together because of the cost. The only thing I would, you know, and some of you maybe I've talked to, I think I've talked to all of you, our architect is saying, if we put a hold on a gymnasium today, you gotta face, next year you're gonna have a minimum of 5% escalation costs. And then on top of that, you're gonna have another 5% of remobilization costs. So all the way around, you're talking about potentially a 10% increase on that gym. And the gym cost estimate is about $2 million. So you're talking about an additional potentially $200,000 a year if you delay. I pleasantly and, you know, maybe a little jokingly, you know, mentioned to the two of them yesterday, how much are you guys willing to contribute to this? If you're contributing $1 million to this, then, you know, I think we would bring that back, I'd bring that back to the board. But I didn't get a response, you know, on that. So they still don't even know what their threshold is in terms of what they can spend without going for voter approval. They'll get that number pretty quickly though. But the fact that Nick Brown has already reached out to the village for use of that was a pretty good indication that they want to move on this thing. So, any other questions on it?
I have a couple.
Sure.
So we talked about location for the gym, and if we put it right up, continuing with ours in the same line versus moving it over, will that still work for the school
Yes.
district? It
Yes.
will?
Yes.
Okay.
Just, I mean, we had it, James went out and he staked out, so if you go behind Sullivan's Gym now, you'll look, there's stakes out there, and that gives you a perspective of the size of the gym that we've at least proposed. And so the depth beyond that, keep continuing going north, and then there's a lot of room going east, and it's kind of a 90-degree that they could, and if the village is willing to provide that extra green space, they have plenty of room to build. They're looking at a 30 to 35,000 square foot building is what they think they'll need. And there's room to do it on that site.
Is there room for playground?
Yeah, they talked about the area where we had the gym originally, you know, behind the stage. They talked about using that area where they'd like to put a large community playground, or in this case, mostly for their school children. Because what we had talked about was just doing a parallel outside our preschool wing of our small lot that exists and just extending that a little bit larger. But yeah, they talked about a larger size playground in that area.
And I was just saying that, you know, making sure that they had room was my first part of the question. And then if they would want us to move it over, I understand there's a bigger expense to move the
About
gym
100K.
over.
About 100K.
Right.
It would cost us to move it.
And do they know about that? Would they
Yeah.
want to be part? Okay.
Yeah,
So
they were
were-
totally fine with us trying to keep things anonymous. Obviously, from a logistical standpoint of our customers and our staffing, it's a lot easier to just have one open gym. It would be an independent structure, so it's not something where roof lines would connect with existing. So you'd have just a doorway. We would blow out a wall, a section of the wall that currently exists, and have that as a connection into the second gym.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So as far as the architect fees and everything, we're pretty set on what we're doing, and there won't be changes based on what the school comes up with. We're going to be pretty much moving forward with the design as is, without the school saying, oh, well, now we want to be part, and now we have to start doing any kind of redesign.
Yeah, tonight we're just asking for you to approve their professional fees for a $5 million project, okay? So the 8% is based on the construction cost of it, not the overall, because they threw in contingencies, and so you're basing that 8% on about a $400,000 construction cost, and that's what's in the scope
Okay.
agreement. So if it comes in less, then it's going to be less, you know, and we will have a design for you guys to look at at a later date approved, and that'll probably be getting in your hands in the next week to 10 days. Staff has met with them too because of just programmatic storage, where we want this office, that office, those kinds of things. So,
Okay.
Any other questions on it?
Good. Okay, with that, then I need a, would be on the first and
Yep.
second already?
We have a motion and a second.
We got a motion and a
We need a
second,
vote?
yes.
Commissioner Kessler,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorhoeffer,
Yes.
Commissioner Moline,
Yes.
President Baloo.
Yes. Okay, next up, we have the annual request for Park Board volunteers to be the district's delegates and alternates at the 2015 IIPD Annual Business Meeting on Saturday, January 30th, 2016, at 3:30 p.m. at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Chicago. Guess I'm stuck being the representative, so I'll say yes. So who would like to volunteer to be the alternate?
I'll be happy to volunteer soon.
Okay, then. I'll do it. I'll do it? Okay. That then, I need a motion to approve Commissioner Baloo as the IAPD Annual Business Meeting Delegate and Commissioner Dorhoeffer as the first alternate.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorhoeffer,
Yes.
Commissioner Moline,
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler,
Yes.
President Baloo.
Yes.
Okay, so, our guest, we mentioned to him to come about 7:15 to 7:30, so. we're a little ahead. Would you like some reports? Our staff can do reports and eat up a little time, I don't know.
Okay, should we move to do the Granger invoices while
Sure.
we're here? Okay, so, I need a motion to approve the WW Granger invoices in the amount of $147.77.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Dorhoeffer,
Abstain.
Commissioner Moline,
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
President Baloo.
Yes. And so while we're at it, we'll do Commissioner comments, since we have time. Commissioner Moline?
I have none, thank you.
Commissioner Robbins?
Nothing this evening.
Commissioner Kessler?
I have a comment. I was able to go to the Kids Castle, how do we say, deconstruct, dismantle, taking it down. I know it was sad for many people and different people I spoke with in the community. But when I explained why we had to do it and that we weren't able to maintain it and now it was all going to be handicap accessible, people were much more understanding of why it had to come down because there was a lot of motion that went along with that park. So going out there, it was, of course, great to see so many volunteers out there. I was surprised of all the different age range, I'll say. I was expecting it to be a lot more just the younger community, the younger kids and families. They were out there, but also the people who were involved in it in the beginning, they came back out and they wanted to be a part of it and share their memories. And we had large groups coming out. We had people who weren't even wasn't even a resident, but wanted to still be part of the community event. So just the different stories of all the people coming out there. It was a beautiful day, and I was so happy to be part of it, and I thank everyone for doing it. That's it.
That's it. Okay, great. And then finally, I have just a quick comment. Jeff and I attended the Illinois Association of Park Districts Gala Award Ceremony. They call it the Best of the Best, and the Park District and the Mundelein Park District shared an award for, I guess, for being good team players.
It was a shared use of our fitness facilities. When we're down and they're down for just maintenance, we let our members go there and they come here again.
But the highlight of the evening is for the service awards that people were handing
geez.
out. And Commissioner Dorhoeffer was unable to attend. So I wanted everyone to see his little award that he got for 10 years of service as a commissioner for the Vernon Hills Park District. And it's a lovely plaque that you received, so enjoy it.
By the way, I had no comments in the commissioner comments.
That's right, I missed your
You
good
skipped
day.
me, but it's okay. I had none.
Dave didn't want to talk anyway, so.
He's getting
I'm so
too-
excited to give him his little
He was
plaque.
trying to figure out what he was gonna say.
Okay, with that, we have a rest period, I guess. So,
I will say, just to echo Commissioner Kessler's comments on the Kids Castle, I think I let you all know that, this Saturday is, we're canceled, actually. At this point, what's left is a lot of telephone poles that, the park staff and Public Works is gonna come out on Monday. They're helping us with some of their heavy equipment. We couldn't budge those things. I mean, they're telephone poles that are just buried. They did a great job when they put those things in there, so rather than snapping them off, we gotta dig a trench around them and pull them out so that everything's, and there's over 100 of these things. So it's gonna take a little time, but the rest of the site's getting pre-cleaned up. We're getting the rest of the panels out of there. We had, the dumpsters were all full. We brought out 5 or 6 dumpsters, 5 dumpsters. We got 5 more that came in that our staff was kind of handling that, that effort. Along those lines too, just an update on, and this is gonna be more of a timing thing because with our landscape architect, everything has to go through DNR and stormwater management and the Army Corps of Engineers because they own the rights to the waterway. So, Mike, feel free to pass those out to the commissioners. Yeah. 6 months worth of permitting usually, and because the entire area at Deer Path that we're doing is in the floodplain. And so we have to get permit approvals from these different, you don't have a white one, Mike.
No, I have a
with
green
logo
one.
on it. Did you get one, Dave? You got one already, okay, I know. It's
Yeah, those of us who were out there that day got one.
Yeah, ours got dirty.
I was coming this Saturday.
Some of us were out of town.
So, we're doing some borings, that we have to do, in the next 2 weeks, probably, hopefully by early November, so we can get those sent in. But the way, if you remember when we did Century Park North, and we waited for the Army Corps of Engineers on some of the shoreline restoration, it took a year before we heard back. So we're hoping to keep the timeline still active. We had told everybody we were looking at May to commence with Kids Castle. We're hoping to get those permits in, by that time, so we can keep things moving on that. But so for just beyond Kids Castle, the 6 tennis courts are going to be done. Ball fields 3 and 4. We've talked about moving. They're going to be different backstops. So if you see the backstops that we did at Century, they're identical to that. And so for those, if you look at 3 and 4, there's going to be a lot more depth between home plate and the back of the backstops. Right now, you don't have that. There's maybe 12 to 15 feet, and that's going to be almost double. So that'll set back. Field 4 is going to be, that's the one closest to Kids Castle. We have new netting coming in. We're going to have to move those the poles that hold that up because the backstop's going to come back a little bit. Park staff is going to be demoing Field 1 at Deer Path. That's the one closest to Warrington. They're going to start on that end of the month, probably, Mike?
After we finish the
Kids
Kids
Castle?
Castle, so
Okay.
probably first week in November.
Okay. And then obviously we want to get seed down on that. OPA, if you haven't been by it, he's got it down to just the shell. Moving a little slower than we'd like. Seems to be a one-man operation for the most part, but Mike's out there every day riding them to get that thing done because, the weather's going to get frosty cold and we want to make sure that we can get that dirt in and seeded and blanketed. And that's about it in terms of updates that I can, till we get,
Do you want me to start explaining this?
sure, if you want. Does everybody have a copy of it? It was in your packet.
It's
It was a separate,
the
wasn't it?
preliminary financing plan overview.
It's, page 46, page 46 of your, well, at least mine is, so it's next to the second to the very last page.
Right?
You probably walk in just as you're finished.
Well, then he can take, I'm just gonna, I thought if I just went over, what the columns were,
You give the mic, just have the mic ready so they can see where it is.
even with my loud voice? Okay. Stay. Is that better? Okay. So column A, I think everyone's probably good on the calendar year. Column B, the best way to look at this is that's how much we can levy in our bond fund for that given year. So basically, that's the pie we have to split up between bond issues and capital projects. So that's your total you have to work with. Column C is what we're gonna have left over after paying our current bond issue, which was for the park maintenance facility and the renovation of Lakeview, which is in column D. And then column E is our projection for this new bond issue. So basically, if you add those three columns together, those add up to column B. So it's just how you split up that pie of money that you can levy for. So you'll see in the first, I believe it's 5 or 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, or 7 years of the column E, the new bond issue, we're just paying interest only because we have to pay off the other bond issue. There's not enough money to be paying interest and principal. And then the principal kicks in because we still need enough money left over for our capital projects each year. Slightly lower, we usually like to be around 300, but we do have a pretty good fund balance in capital projects. So we think that there's enough there to be able to do the projects we have planned for. And because of the money that is going to be coming through impact fees, we don't need to use this money that we were having to use before to pay down the debt to the village. Oh, I'm stealing your
I'm
thunder.
a minute or two late.
You
I
know what, they just got
apologize.
done early, you're actually early, so you're good. So I was just explaining the counts.
Probably better than I, so,
Okay, well, Dan, now that you're here, Dan Forbes with the Spear Financial. He's gonna
Thank
carry
you.
on where I was left off, so.
you all have a copy of Model 2 is in the
Yes,
board
that's what you're
packet.
looking at,
And let me pick up where you left off. Where did you leave off? Besides
I
saying,
had
why
really
don't you
kind
just
of
start
gone
again?
over the,
Why don't you just start with what you
Sure.
If that's okay.
it would only, it was a few minutes.
That's fine. Again, Dave Phillips, my colleague, sends his greetings, and I get the privilege of coming in tonight. My understanding is that I'm here to talk a little bit about this Model 2, and that to describe a little how it was put together. I understand that the Park District is looking or contemplating a bond issue next year. And so we developed this around the idea of kind of a planning model for debt service with respect to how much money would you have left over for capital, how much do you owe on the 2013 bond issue, and how would this kind of feather in. So having said that, Model 2 was developed by Dave, and there's obviously the calendar years, and then there's the second column, which is your limited bond net proceeds. Now, in short, state of Illinois allows you to issue bonds to debt service extension base every year, and you're able to net out, based on no CPI increases, you're able to net out about $990,000. At least that's the projection for the sale, I think, later this month by Dave. So you get CPI increases from there, but if you plan with no CPI increases, that $990,000 is sort of your revenue model or revenue base. And from that, you take out whatever, Dave has it in the third column, it's kind of what falls out at the end, your capital, available for capital. The way I'd look at it maybe is take that $990,000 minus the outstanding debt service on the 2013s, and that is a given. That's in column number 4. So it's about 500 and some thousand a year. And then what's left over would be your capital. Or it could be used for debt service to be paid in the future. So it appears essentially what Dave's looking for, and again, that second from the right column, column E, Dave's projecting out what the issue may cost the next year. He used 4%. It'll probably cost a little less than that unless rates go kind of screwy. I ran it, and maybe you could save today another 20 grand a year or something like that, but who knows what rates are going to be next year. So if you basically feather in that 2016 issue where the principal's being paid after the 2013 issue, you're going to essentially have an issue or debt service that'll carry you through 2032. And with that, you can support both the 2013 A's, the 2016 A's, assuming interest rates remain reasonable. And you should have left over just under 300-some thousand in the out years for capital. Again, you've got CPI increases that may increase slightly. And actually that last column, F, shows you that we would solve this such that everything gets dumped into capital at the end. So even though that last column shows essentially zero, it's really just whatever's left over we put in the capital, unless you have a capital number you need us to solve for, and then we can do that accordingly. Did I miss anything of the main items? I'm here for questions, and I actually prepared for the meeting, so I apologize for being a little late. So
You were fine.
7:30,
You were
so
fine.
you're
yes,
early.
no, that's fine. But other than that, it is pretty straightforward. Oh, the one thing I should mention is the 990 that you issue in limited bonds every year, that is sort of a typical Park District approach to use your limited bond capacity. Park District clients do that, you either use it or lose it every year. So that 990,000 really doesn't represent any sort of tax increase over time. I mean, that's where you're taxing residents at right now. That's probably where you're going to be taxing them in the future. If you stay with, historically what you've been doing. What this essentially does by doing the 2016 issue, it just sort of pushes aggregates with the 13 and pushes your total debt service out to a longer horizon.
Mr. Robbins?
I have a question on column B. So you're saying that if we borrow $5.5 million, over 15 years, we have to pay back $8,167,000. So that's a difference of $2,667,000 divided by 15 years. It's costing us around $178,000 a year, which is 3.23%. Is that percentage within line of what it should be costing us? To me, it seemed a little high. Because you had mentioned something like 4%.
Well, it's costing us $220,000 a year until we start paying it down. So there you can see, so it's gonna cost us more because we're not paying it down for the first 5 years. 6 years, 6 years, whatever it is. So that alone is gonna increase the cost because you're not paying it down.
I see, right.
You're not paying principal down, you're paying interest
That's what I
for
meant,
that
right, you're not paying it
right?
down.
So it's kind of,
Otherwise it would-
I don't want to say backloaded, but because you're fitting it in back to the 13s, you're not retiring the principal till later, and that is, I think, the
you're paying
real
it down in
answer
10
to the
years.
idea why the rate is so high. If I were to do a flat level debt service, it would be a lower rate.
So why don't we do that?
We don't have enough
We
money.
don't have the money.
You don't have the room, actually, of your debt service extension base. If we were to take, I've got my calculator. I've learned from the young kids today that you don't do things off the top of your head anymore, so. Let's see what this would be level. I mean, eyeballing it, if you were to level this out, let's say it's 500,000 a year. If we were to run this level, then in the early years, essentially 16 through 21, instead of 220, you would have 500 and some thousand. So the difference, additional debt service would be 300, and that 300,000 would leave you with no capital. And actually, you'd take out your capital of 260 some, and you would probably have to pony up the difference of 40,000. So your revenues, which are locked in at that 990, don't allow you in the short years to support level debt service. Now, I could move some of the principal up and not make it interest only, and suck up more of your capital. It's kind of like, you know, pushing on a balloon. So let me know, I can certainly show you something to that effect if you want to,
No,
but.
yeah, we need that capital for our playground replacements, for all of our ongoing projects this year. Each year we depend on that money.
Just a quick question for reference for everyone else. These, when we go to sell the bonds, it's a fixed rate for the entire period?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be the-
Whatever they purchase the bonds at, it's whatever that rate is, that's it.
That is it. We would put in, because this is a longer issue, unlike your 13s, we would put a call in, probably in the 8-year range.
So a good
we would-
example is you said we might save as much as 20 a year if the interest rate that it was purchased at was even lower than the 4% that you projected here.
Yes.
So right there, that would be almost that would be $100,000 just in the first 5 years of interest only. And then obviously it goes down from there, but that's a couple $100,000 savings right there potentially.
Exactly. Plus you'll have the CPI increases. We tend to be
Well,
a little.
that doesn't
right.
save
We
us
tend
money,
to be
that just saves us
conservative.
more on the other end. That's just more tax, that's not.
It is. It is. Under the model of float, like you said, more cash to capital.
And
So-
then 20 really helps because it puts it back towards that 300 that we like to be
Well,
at
yeah,
each
it
year for
increases our capital expenditure,
Yeah.
you know.
I think
Always
just,
can
just
expend
also beyond the capital, that 300 number is kind of that's a threshold we like, but, you know, we also have very healthy reserves. Not that I, want to dip into those, but, if you have a project like Grosse Point, okay, where you have a retaining wall cave in and we got to fix it for $200K,
Yeah, we used to have it
you
handy.
want to have that capital and you want to have to use that reserve to cover those kinds of projects, those misnomers. So I did, on the page, a couple pages before, you'll see it's on page 47. I gave you guys just kind of an overall capital impact fee, bond fee, assessment, and that provides maybe some answers to future projects. You guys have that in your packet?
It's at the dais
No,
as
we
well.
just gave.
Oh, it's on your dais? Okay, it's in a memorandum form, not a large sheet, sorry, we got it on a hard copy. 44 on mine, but the essence is just what Dan was talking about and Marla about the 5.5 million, but then, there's between the OPA, between the Groves Park Master Plan, and then we've got LFC, a roof replacement, and so you see all those kind of high-end costs that exceed our normal threshold of maybe 300K for capital. And then I just kind of show you how once those receivables come in on developer fees, how we would kind of accentuate the pay downs on those for those kind of higher end projects. And those are developer, fees that were given to us by the village based on their current formula and projects that they see are gonna go. They're planning on going. So hopefully that helps with just the kind of economy of scale.
Mr. Kessler?
So if we go with this model and we have unexpected impact fees or something additional comes in, we have the option to pay down and save, or is it locked in?
If you have money coming in
If
to
we
the
have it-
district, unexpected windfall, for
Yes,
example.
won the lottery and we want to
I
pay
love
them.
your way of thinking, yes.
Mhm.
Let's suppose we have a windfall. I get that at home a lot, actually. If we have a windfall, you have this 8-year call on the bonds.
Right.
You really can't, you aren't gonna be able to use the windfall to pay down the bonds for 8 years. A bondholder who's gonna buy the 15-year issue is going to ask that he get call protection for about 8 years. If we want to shorten that to 5 years, he's going to probably jack up the rate, maybe 20, 30 basis points. So the cost benefit right now is at the 8 years, but if you suspect there may be, for example, this comes up a lot when grant funds might come in. If you expect you might be getting a good chunk of grant money from whoever, then we could put in a shorter call and you can just pay a higher rate on the bonds. So that would be something though to be thinking about. I think that's important.
But at the same time, the reality is, I mean, we're at a historically rock bottom interest rates. So the chances that interest rates will be even lower in the future, should we need to borrow additional funds for any reason, whether we have the capacity or not, probably slim to none. So in a way, if interest rates at some point in the future get higher, we're actually,
In good shape.
We're protected.
we're doing it at the right time, let's put it that way.
And
Even
if
though
they
we
did
made,
go down, we could refinance at that call.
yes, absolutely, after the 8 years, right? So the reality is we probably would never want to, unless interest rates go to -1, we're probably never going to want to pay it off anyway, because you'd be better off putting the money in a bank. If interest rates went up suddenly, we might actually reach a point at some point in the future that we could be earning more than we're paying on this.
Right, you can't do that with bond proceeds, but you certainly
No, but
can
with
take
other
it out of one
funds,
pocket
right.
for the other, and
Right.
yes, hopefully on the balances
As
that
opposed to
you're
paying
carrying.
it down further is my point.
Exactly,
you know.
you do just a cost benefit, an economic analysis, and see whether you're better sticking it in the bank or paying down the bonds, or whether there's other considerations.
Ask people in the 70s and 80s if that was, you know,
I have lived there.
when interest rates were 14 and 17%, you know, and they were paying 4% on their mortgage, they didn't want it ever to end.
If you recall, a number of years ago, we did the 10-year call on our 20-year issue and refinanced, and we had that double payment for a couple years, and we paid it off. That did raise the interest rate,
The tax rate.
or the tax rate. So at that time, it did make sense to call it, and so we have done that. But that's when rates were going down.
Any other questions for Dan? Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much. I, again, apologize for being a little late.
You were late. We were early.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Meline,
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorhoeffer,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
President Blue.
Yes. We're done.